Jambo Africa, I greet you and I love you all. Welcome to my channel. The hot potato, potato. Unless it's hot, they're exactly the same. But when it's hot, it's in your chest. What do you need to do? To do a chest cleaning exercise. And that's what I welcome you guys to my channel as we do the chest cleaning exercise. Today, the hot topic or the hot potato is the genesis of commercial banks in Southern Africa. How did it all started that we were so fortunate to have commercial banks in Southern Africa? It started in 1834, 1st of August. A huge announcement was made by Britain, the abolishment of slavery. How does that make us have a commercial bank? That's what I will try to explain. So when that happened, Britain didn't stop by just abolishing slavery. By the way, the slaves that were released then, maybe 1934, 35, in the Cape Colony or in Southern Africa, they numbered up to 38,000 according to some historians. Some dispute this figure, so that's not the debate we are going into today. What we want to do is the genesis of commercial banks in Southern Africa. How did it all started? So Britain decided to compensate the slave masters from all the 19 colonies that it had. And I'm not so sure how much was allocated to other colonies, but the Cape Colony or Southern Africa was given 1.2 million pounds in 1834, 30, around that period. Okay, so I might not be right with the dates, but it is around that period, 1934, 35, 36. Britain decided to compensate the slave masters, and the initial calculations was 73 pounds per each slave. But when the money was allocated, it was enough to pay 34 pounds per each slave. And the farmer would get probably 34 pounds per each slave plus mortgage. So some farmers had money in the region of 400,000 pounds in 1834, 35, 36. Then it was a lot of money. But here was the difficulty. For the slave master to cash in on the compensation claim, they had to go and claim it or redeem it in London, in England. So there was an opportunity for business for British citizens. So they became merchants or they became brokers. So they would come to a slave master and say, here is your claim. Can I have it? And I compensate you or I pay you, but 10% less or 20% less, business. And farmers found it profitable because there was no need for them to sail from the Cape of Good Hope to England. So they would just cash in their money in Southern Africa. So they did so. So there was an influx of money. That was the first reason why we had to have a commercial bank. And the first commercial bank came into being, must be 1838. But when you go on Google and check, they would say it came into being because of the boom in wool trade. Wool, which is from sheep. Now we want to find the link. So the abolishment of slavery brought the commercial bank, and it also started the sheep farming in Southern Africa. And how did it happen? They were clever people again that saw an opportunity. So there was this merino sheep in Australia, and they had connections. So they would bring it down to Southern Africa, and they would say to the slave masters, your compensation claim is a legal tender. It's a legal tender. You hand it over to me, I give you sheep equivalent. So that's exactly what they were doing. And there was boom for sure of wool because most of the farmers in Southern Africa, or most of the slave masters, went into the sheep business. Sheep business. English is not my first language. I don't mean sheep where the yacht or the Titanic. I mean sheep, iguja. Why? So yes, they went into that business, and there was again business going on. So that's the brief history of how we ended up having the commercial banks in Southern Africa. And the first one, according to some historians, was in 1838. I hope I'm not saying 19, because every time I play back my video, I see it's 19. No, it was 1838. So the abolishment of slavery was in 1834. Britain decided to compensate the slave master. And in Southern Africa, we were having slaves. That's another thing that many people don't realize. We always think of the transatlantic slave trade. There was slavery imported in Southern Africa from also the area around Madagascar, Mozambique, Angola, and also from West Africa. And they were not compensated. They were just released, and the numbers ranges from 38,000 upwards. And that's what happened. And we had the commercial bank. There was a lot of money that was coming in. They say the impact of this act by Britain was almost equivalent to the discovery of gold and diamond. The impact. I didn't say the money that was made was equal. No, I mean the impact. It was such a life-changing moment for Southern Africa and for some slave masters. And their life changed forever up to this day. But that's not the story. The story is the genesis of commercial banks in Southern Africa. So that's my story, and I stand by it. Love you so much. Chest clean. Goodbye.